Petile yarmoda Pelge drolor zampe ze parche Pande lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradara Sumatimo Nishasane Kar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Oma Guru Vajrad Sumatimo Nishasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradara Sumatimo Nishas Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradara Sumatimo Nishasane Kar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradara Sumatimo Nishasane Kar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajra Shasane Karma Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradara Sumatimo Nishasane Kar Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradara Sumatimo Nishas Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Dhagi Je Tsong Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Oyon Sungi Nawa Tsedu So Tseji Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Usu Lekshune Yila Sambe Dede Malupa Geme Lungi Drupra Chingilo Tsoni Sogdan Diktun Shakpe Tse Dungi Namke Yinsu Lekshune Labchen Tsoni Yonsu Tsokpa Cherani Dun Changwara Chingilo Chancho Pargi Ninsen Tukuntu Niu Peme Siudru Lekshune Chancho Drube Gegen Kunshishi Tungen Dela Drubra Chingilo Dagi Lona Chela Chokpa Dan Chemin Samjur Ngemba Shiwa Dan Chedan Tumbe Dede Malupa Beme Lungi Drubra Chingilo Dorna Tingne Tsera Tamche Dan Teche Pardon Rese Kyamne Lama Kele Me Tukche Chingi Dala Sikso So Gongya Drewe Nyamta Dachala Jetsun Lame Tuche Rabgongne Kodan Sungi Nawa Dralme Tu Nyamso Nyongwe Kesan Toprasho Kewa Kuntu Yanda Lama Dan Drame Cheke Pela Longche Ching Sadan Lamge Yente Rabzone Dorje Changi Kopa Nyur Tobo Sho Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Lu Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Pakyuke Tukdan Dagi Tön Yerme Chiktu Chingi Lu Makyuke Kudan Dagi Lu Makyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Makyuke Tukdan Dagi Tön Yerme Chiktu Chingi Lu Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Svo Shipu ki chu shime to Chamare rabalinga shi ni de padi sange shintu mikte ulwarki Rokun namda shingla Chopar shoyidama Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi chushe gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sange drupar sho sange chedan sogi chonam la chancho pardo Dagi chushe gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sange drupar sho
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo yal haye ke da ludan chinke rubunda da mi kenam da ruba kunge ranam chitsampa thamche ke to dagi cheten. Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Esiste
There's a saying. It's not actually a saying. It's a it's a verse of Buddha's teachings or a commentary. I'm not sure exactly what text it is, but it said that among all the sacred actions, the most precious, the most important is that one of speech, of the speech. So when we talk about an enlightened being, a sacred being, the strongest, the most powerful action that he has to be able to help others, to interact, and at the same time guide and help is that of speech. I don't disagree, but let's say I agree and I don't agree in the sense that one's word is fundamental, but before, I mean, it would be correct starting from the idea that there is the essence, because I could be very, very good to use beautiful words to explain things in a certain way, but if I can speak beautifully for hours about love, but if I don't feel love, my ability to actually transmit love will be quite limited. When I studied at the monastery of Serame. There was one passage that said that teaching the Dharma without sound through through appearance, through one's body, and as children, we as young monks, we would joke around saying, "How could someone teach the Dharma without speaking? Do they make gestures? But from my point of view, to be the strongest way of teaching is not through speech, not through the word, but actually being in the presence of someone who has actualized these qualities. Just like this, the same thing said by someone who lives it, who believes in it, who feels it and realizes it, is much different from someone who understands it, maybe even believes it, but it's still just a concept that totally changes. So we live in a particular moment now. I believe that everything is cyclical. Nothing is permanent. We have various moments. It's a kind of pendulum. It goes from one extreme to the next, or an actual cycle that goes up, that comes down. And we're in a particular moment, and generally speaking, the common view today, there's this idea, and it's even more widespread, and it's even faster because we're influenced by others, by communication, by interaction, and when our means of communication today are extremely fast. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago was much different. This morning I was talking to a master of Albagnano, a great friend of mine today too, because things that people joking around, we said if you don't want people to tell something, to say something, then you must tell them, oh, this is not important, tell everyone about it because it means nothing, and then maybe they won't. Otherwise, everyone knows everything even before they, when they shouldn't, let's say. So the information is spread very, very quickly, and there's some aspects regarding the society are in crisis, certain morals, but I don't want to get into this today. But in this world that is going so quickly, we have this technology that is evolving radically fast. What we need most, and I have absolutely no doubt, what this world needs, our society, but also on a macro scale. We don't need a faster internet. We don't need great evolution in artificial intelligence. So it can be beneficial. It has positive effects, negative effects, but this is not what I want to talk about today. What we really need on this planet, we need people who can embody love, harmony, coherence, and healthy values and principles. This is what we need most of all. So I invite each one of you to give value to this, so that we set as an objective to have stability, emotional stability, to feel equality, equanimity, principles of love and compassion, and the principles of non-violence and non-hatred. I mean, these morals, these principles are incredibly important. And I think there's always has been, but in this moment, I feel it deeply. It's said that when there's a lot of darkness, every small light really can have an enormous effect. When it's dark, pure darkness, and we have a tiny little light, it is very powerful. So I invite everyone to give value to your own development of altruism and love, and being able to maintain your principles, some healthy principles. This this is doing this is not just about us and our lives, but our collective self is made up of each individual self. And then there are people, for various reasons, have special qualities and have more influence. There are beings who have inner states of great realizations, states of great love, great altruism and wisdom and coherence and balance, and their presence has a great influence in our tradition. For example, here on my right side, there's the image of Atisha Dimpankara, and if we see, we can find also his representation here on the left side. There's again there we can see Atisha. Why? Because Atisha, some centuries later, maybe 900 years later, was reborn as Kyabshin Chizan Dorje Chang, the main master of Lama Ganchen. Here you see that white window. Then there are 5 images. The 7th one, who is who has the horse, that's the first recognized reincarnation of Atisha, of Kyabshin Tishan Dorje Chang, and then going on, and he now lives today in Vermont, his actual incarnation. These people who have this state of love and balance and wisdom, and we have the great fortune of being able to create this link, and this continues from life to life. There's some beings who have these characteristics and can be shown in, can manifest in many different ways. And the other day, what we talked about the importance of a spiritual guide, I had said that a being who has special qualities can guide us in many different ways, can manifest in many different ways. And I knew in this life I had the great luck of knowing, meeting, and being close to many special beings. And when I say special being, it's not a magician. If someone in front of me starts fluctuating or can snap his fingers and light fire in the palm of his hands, I said, what am I going to do with that? Once someone went to Lama Ganchen, it was in the United States. This was quite a robust man, went to Lama Ganchen, and he said, I heard that in the Tibetan tradition there are techniques of meditation to learn how to levitate, and can I learn? And Rinpoche said, yes, these techniques do exist, but with so much hard work, maybe 15, 20 years of everyday meditation, maybe you'd be able to fluctuate a couple meters. But today you can use an elevator or an airplane. So take instead that energy to develop love and stability and harmony, coherence, wisdom. This is what we need most. When I say very special beings, these are people and with whom I was able to share their presence, and I saw that their presence was very touching, and what I was able to meet, and like I'd like to um, I'd like to recall um, um, Pope Francis. I was able to meet him, and this morning, unfortunately, he left his body. It was Pope Francis, and and there was a meeting once in there was a, let's say, an intimate encounter in Milan, among an interreligious encounter, not open to the public. There were about 1,000 people there, and I went there really with an open mind, and I was deeply touched by his presence, his clarity, his energy, what he was able to transmit. And every time that there is someone who is a reference point in these times and is able to maintain that coherence that we've been talking about. Obviously, when a person dies, I mean, that's part of nature, and that's not the problem. That's part of life, but it's a loss. I think it's important for all of us to rejoice for the presence of someone like Pope Francis. It's said when someone who has special qualities, spiritual qualities, dies, it's not a moment. In our tradition, one doesn't pray for the one who has died, but we pray to receive his blessings, because when in our tradition it's said that when there's no longer this gross body, that subtle body is able to connect more easily with us. So we even recently we've been dedicating for Pope Francis when he had these health ailments. So it's we can pray so that he can continue to manifest himself and continue to spread spread his qualities, continue to guide in the future. So before we continue with today's teachings, I'd like to dedicate a little bit of prayer dedicated to Pope Francis, and dedicated in general to our world. And I invite everyone in his own way to make homage. Remember here in Albagnano, when the previous pope, when the Pope Wojtyla, when he left his body with Lama Ganchen, we went to the church to offer a candle, offer our prayers. The church was closed, but that's not the point. Anyway, so I invite everyone to participate in this moment of dedication and prayer.
Vajra sattva samaya manupalaya Vajra sattva tenopa Tishta didro meba Suto kayo mebawa Supo kayo me bawa Anurakto me bawa tsame tsitam shriyam guru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan sarva tattagat vajramame munsa vajra bhava maha samaya sattva ahum pe ho shuddhe shuddhe hayamo shuddhe shuddhe svoha ram ho shuddhe shuddhe svoha lam ho shuddhe shuddhe svoha bam ho shuddhe shuddhe svoha eyam ram lam bam shuddhe shuddhe svoha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Svoha Om Ye Dharma Hetun Prabhava Hetun Teshan Tattagato Yavadata Teshan Chayo Niroda Vadi Mahashramana Yesvoha Om Chenam Tamche Gyule Chung Te Gyu Deshin Shekpe Sum Gyula Gokpa Kaimba Gejon Chembe Teke Sum Gejon Chembe Chingelo Gejon Chembe Modrup Sol Gejon Chembe Trashi Sho Nella mia esperienza,
In my experience, one of the aspects when people very close to me, especially my own teachers, when they have left their body, one aspect that that I was left with, that was quite strong inside of me, this feeling, okay, now it's up to me to practice and to stand on my own 2 feet. And it doesn't matter how old one is. When one's own parents pass away, one feels orphan, and it doesn't matter how old you are. There's someone who's there for you, that you can lean on. But actually, it's always only been up to us. And I invite everyone to reflect a little bit on, the fact that the life goes by quickly, and we'll see this later on. The 2 very important fundamental points in the Lam Rim: the uncertainty the certainty of death and the uncertainty of the time of death, and dying is not the problem, but living badly is. So we need to be able to be responsible and take the responsibility of being part of the solution and not part of the problem. Because when we look at the world, what's the problem? The problem is hatred and anger and attachment, projecting happiness on to things that cannot uphold those things, extreme materialism. And being part of the solution would be cultivating within ourselves stability and respect and love and satisfaction, etc. To do this, we need to work. We need to work at it. It's not something that just comes with a snap of a finger. Or I said, oh, I would like to have stability. I mean, wanting it with all your heart is already an important step, but it's not enough. In the Bodhisattva Charvatara, Shantideva says that he makes the difference between wanting to go and actually going. So actually going, doing something to go, wanting to go somewhere is one thing, and another thing is actually picking up and doing something to get there. So this path to develop inner stability and joy, etc., requires familiarization, requires repetition, because our mind is malleable and it transforms according to the experiences that it has. The more I think in one way, the easier it is to think in that way. The more I feel an emotion, the easier it is to feel that. The less I feel something, the weaker that emotion becomes. And so to do this, there are two ways to familiarize ourselves. First of all, we start from the principle that, just summarizing, we can say that it's better to be an artificial altruist than a natural selfish person. And when I say artificial, doesn't mean false. False would mean I show to others certain behaviors that I don't actually have. Artificial in this context means I am sincere in being respectful and loving, but that love, that generosity, that respect doesn't come spontaneously. I need to put effort into coming into contact to generate that, to feel it. But it's not fake. It just requires effort. This process of training of anything requires this aspects of getting out of one's comfort zone. And our comfort zone has to do with our habits and where we already are. Someone who has a high level of someone who is very loving is in his comfort zone, is there in loving, and one would have to put effort into feeling anger, and that would be going outside the comfort zone. So our habits are changed by doing the opposite experience. So at the beginning it's difficult, and then after a while it's easy. Shantideva, still in the Bodhisattva Charvatara, said, there's nothing that is not easy once you're used to it. So it's a process of familiarization. There's a difficulty in this process, and it was explained to me very clearly once in training those who do like Olympic training. There's a specific term that I don't remember now. This is someone who participated in Olympic training. Said one of the great difficulties is, let's say that I need to train I'll give you a simple example. I need to run. And in this process of running, every day I run a certain number of kilometers, and every day I need to go faster. If today I'm able to do it in 10 minutes, tomorrow I should do it in 9 minutes, 9 minutes, 30 seconds, and little by little getting faster and faster. Today I got to 10 minutes. Tomorrow I need to get to 9. Let's say every day I can save or shave off a minute. But if I stop training for one day, so today I'm at 10, tomorrow I should be at 9. I don't train tomorrow and I start training the day after tomorrow. How many minutes can I do the day after tomorrow? 10, 9, or even 8, which should be, where am I? 11. And if I stop for even one more day, it's not even 12, but it goes even, the days that I go behind are multiplied. When there was COVID and they pushed back the Olympics, they pushed back the Olympics a year. It was extremely difficult for the athletes because they needed to maintain that high level of their sport for a whole year. And so that's this kind of training can be applied to everything. If I even more difficult for us if when we stop training we do the opposite. We put the opposite energy into that. So there's two ways. One way I can train in a certain behavior, a certain way of thinking, in my daily life, my way of speaking, my way of interacting with people, my way of being at work and being in the family, or how I eat, how I dress. Yesterday we talked about how to train in love and altruism while eating, where I explained before we eat, we visualize the Buddha at our heart, and we make an offering to the Buddha at our heart, and then an act of generosity to all the microorganisms in our body. And so as we eat, we are training in love and generosity, respect for our spiritual path, so many things. So there's one part, like how to practice So how to practice between meditation sessions, and how to practice, how to train during meditation. So why is meditation important? Let's imagine that I want to train and reinforce the muscle in my arm, and I need to do an hour of exercise. So and then I do an hour and I stop. So okay, but one thing is spending an hour actually training. Another is picking up the weight and then looking at my phone, and maybe in an hour I did it 5 times instead of all of those regular repetitions. Instead, of course, if I do something where I'm actually present and I'm constant. So this constancy and this presence is essential. If I need to familiarize myself with a mental state, the more I'm able to keep that mental state present, the more I'm able to familiarize myself with it. So let's say I generate that feeling and then 25 different thoughts come to my mind, and then I try to grasp that feeling for another half second. I mean, I can spend days and days really with not developing much. So the basis of meditation is this process to being able to have control over our mind so that we can direct it where we want. So this first object of meditation in LamRim is relying correctly on a spiritual guide. So we're going to familiarize our mind with respect, faith, trust, these feelings that we talked about the other day. We're going to induce these, let's say artificially, through a process of analytical meditation. We induce these thoughts to create these feelings inside, and then there's the meditation on impermanence, the law of karma, love towards oneself, towards others, all these qualities that we want to develop. Then we meditate on them. Let's remember that the word meditate literally means to familiarize, taking the Tibetan term gom. Gom literally means to familiarize, but to be able to familiarize myself with something, first I need to be able to keep my mind there on it. And this, we come to today's point, how to prepare the body and the mind for meditation. Yesterday we looked at how to prepare our space, how to set up an altar, create that link, display our offerings, all part of these preliminary practices. And today we'll talk about how to prepare the body and the mind for meditation, which is very important, because if we try to meditate without the correct procedures, one starts to be ready to meditate at the very end. If you don't prepare yourself well, after 40 minutes or so, after you're at the end of self-healing, you're at Vishwashanti, and then finally you're ready to start meditating. Instead, it's important to prepare oneself well at the beginning. What's wonderful is that these steps that we're going to see, if you're able to do these well, they bring an enormous benefit. Even if we're not going to enter into very complicated meditations, this first preparation for meditation is extremely beneficial. And the benefit of doing things gradually is that most of us were able to do. Except in cases, very rare cases of cases like schizophrenia or these kind of things, where trying to keep one's mind still on something could actually increase some kind of mental imbalance that someone has. But we are different, and there are different methods. There's actually a story of a practitioner. His master had taught him the correct posture that we're going to see now, and he was never to meditate well. And then one day his master said, he had him actually meditate upside down standing on his head, and he was able to meditate well there. And it was described that his organs were upside down. This a kind of a genetic condition that very, very rare, but apparently exists. And so he had that. So to meditate, he needed to be upside down. But normally, we're going to explain what for most of us is applicable. And then there are very few certain cases that need to be seen individually. Before explaining the correct posture, how to prepare ourselves mentally and physically, first of all, very quickly, why should we meditate? Because if we don't have clarity as to why we should meditate, it'll be difficult for us to meditate. The first thing is to want to meditate, idea that it's good for me, that it's something that we want to do. And the reason for it is really quite simple. The most powerful tool in our mind, in our life, is our mind. Our mind is the source of our suffering, but also the source of our happiness. Having a healthy body and a healthy environment with an unhealthy mind is like being in heaven and living in hell, and vice versa. If you have a healthy mind and in difficult external circumstances and an unhealthy body, then you're living heaven in extremely difficult situations. And I've known people who've been able to maintain perfect inner balance. I wish it were not like this, but I've known many people who have everything to be happy and they're very unhappy. So in our life, where most of us, we don't have real problems. I don't know how many of you don't have, how many of you can't make it to the end of the month or need to worry about having food on your table, or your survival is under constant threat. I don't think so. So really, I mean, real problems, I don't want to diminish the problems of anyone, but problems of survival we don't have. And if we see that most of our suffering is mental, is not physical. It has to do with the future and the past and how we manage and deal with the present. And to resolve the mental suffering, the most precious tool we have is our mind. And before we direct our mind to a virtuous and positive and healthy state, we need to know how to direct our mind. And before we can direct our mind, we need to want to do it. A little bit like saying, if I want to walk a lot, I need to train in walking. And once I have the physical strength to walk, then I can decide where I want to go. Similarly, I need to have a mind that's more used to being still, that's used to following the direction that is given, having fewer inner dialogue. And the good news is that many have done it, and we can do it too. There's no one who is not able to do it, who can't do it. There's a term, a saying that says, even an ant with effort and constancy can reach enlightenment. I don't know why they use an ant as the example. The ant is used as a symbol of the most inferior of beings. I like ants so much. But the point is, if we put constant energy, we will have great results. So today I wanted to put emphasis on this point, on how to prepare for meditation, also because it's a preparation that we need to train ourselves for. It's not about understanding. It's a preparation that we need for the following, to be able then to do following steps. It's divided into two parts, and the second one is actually we can divide the first in two, and also the second in two. The first is how to prepare the body, how to prepare the mind. And in the preparation of the body, we have the correct posture. and in preparing the mind, we have how to prepare a calm mind and how to prepare motivation. So why is the meditation posture important? Body and mind are not connected. They are indivisible. On a coarse level, on a coarse level, body and mind are indivisible. On a subtle level, they are indivisible, and on a very subtle level, they're indivisible. In other words, anything that happens to the body happens to the mind, and anything that happens to the mind happens happens to the body. They have two different manifestations. That's sure, but one doesn't exist separate from the other. That's why I think there are two manifestations of the same thing. So if one, during meditation, there are two main enemies, Qinghua and Gupa. Qinghua is mental torpor, mental dullness. When the mind is it's mental fogginess, and then comes to sleepiness, and leads to sleep. But that first level of Qinghua is mental fogginess, and Gupa is mental agitation, which goes from the jumpy mind to an anxious mind. These are the two main enemies of meditation. Just try, for example, to meditate on a comfortable couch with slouched over. What is probably going to happen there? That we will fall asleep. If we observe with a little bit of attention, you can perceive that when we sit down with our back hunched over, that naturally brings our mind down, and it leads to a little bit of introspection maybe, but also sleepiness. Instead, if we keep our head straight but tense, that brings us more agitation. So it's said that for meditation, the first point, the fundamental point, is to sit with our back straight but not tense. And we need to practice that. We need training, not just during meditation, but in between as well. If we can maintain that awareness of keeping our back straight at work, at the table, this will help us to have more mental clarity, and that'll help us also when we go to meditate to have our back straight. If I try during meditation to keep my back straight, and then during the rest of my day I'm all slouched over, that's not going to help. So one thing that really helps in meditation is the posture of our legs. That's why when we talk about the seven, for meditation, we talk about the 7 or 8 meditation postures of Vairochana. Vairochana, one of the Dhyani Buddhas, represents a perfection of form, white in color. So he represents the body in its pure state, among other things. And there was 7/8, because the eighth posture, the 8th point of the posture would be one's breath, and sometimes it's listed and sometimes it's not. So let's look now at the elements, the list in the posture of meditation that has been handed down since the time of Buddha, and it's it's absolutely certified, we can say. People say, can I meditate, like this? Well, try. But since there is a method that has worked for centuries and centuries for so many people, wouldn't it be better to try this? So the first point is our back. And to keep our back straight, something important is to use a comfortable cushion, which shouldn't be too high or too low. And it's very important to not sit on a kind of a couch where one's bottom is lower than one's knees, and naturally the back would curve. If we have a cushion under our sitting bones, then our bottom is higher than our knees. You need to try this. Try yourselves what is the right height for the cushion. And once you find the right cushion, I have objects of attachment. This is one of my objects of attachment, actually. This cushion, for me, which I really think is one of the best. It's what I'm using also here. This one's a little bit difficult, but this is the right height for me. And it can be different for everyone. And this one was designed by Lumpo Tata, also a master of mine who's been here. He's a great master great master in the Theravada tradition in Thailand. Just to give you an idea, about a couple of years ago, they told me they had about 4.5 million disciples, and he has his posture. And there, when you go to his center in Bangkok, wherever you go, even in the offices or when you go to eat, they all have chairs, so that to encourage this kind of sitting, so that your back is straight like this, so that you're in the correct posture. But take a couple different cushions, even the ones we have here, where you have a kind of you have a different kind of grain inside, and you can try different heights. There are many cushions here in the Gompa with various heights and forms, and once you find the one that works for you, buy it and keep it and use it, because one needs to be comfortable also with the height. So this is really one of my objects of attachment. I have one here at the center and one at the house. It really works well for me, but it depends on everyone's body and their muscles, etc. So finding the right cushion is really important, at least understanding what the right height is for you. So the first one on the list is the back. Our back should be straight. Imagine from our fontanella, imagine a kind of string that pulls us up just slightly, that keeps our back absolutely straight, but it's not curved. It's not curved backwards or forwards. It's relaxed. There shouldn't be any kind of tension. And with this, we have our back and then our legs. There are different possible postures for our legs. Depends on the tradition. I explain the one that exists in the Tibetan tradition. In Thailand, they have a different way of sitting. At Luang Por Thata, for example, they have a position where one leg is forward and bent, and the other one is back. I was doing a retreat, and I had a strong pain in one leg, and I saw that by putting my myself in that position, the pain subsided. Even there, one needs to try for himself. But traditionally, according to the Tibetan posture, I'll show you how we sit. So the first one is Dorje Kiltrun in Tibetan. So it's the Vajra asana. The Vajra is indestructible. The Vajra asana is this posture. I'm not sure if you can see me or not. The Vajra asana is when the 2 feet are above the 2 thighs. But remember something. The first thing that it said about the meditation posture, it says sit comfortably. So if I say, oh no, I need to sit perfectly and I put so much effort, but it hurts, my knee hurts, here it hurts, everywhere it hurts, and I keep it, I struggle to keep it. Where's my mind going to go? So what am I familiarizing myself with? With pain, and that's not what we want to familiarize ourselves with. So what happens is the benefit of this posture is that when you sit like this, naturally your back is straight, even without putting any effort. But what happens is that most of us, we're not used to sitting in this position. For me, it's not hard for me to sit like this, but if I need to sit for a long time, it becomes more difficult. So normally, I choose what's called the half Vajra position, where one leg, one foot, one is above and one is under. So I sit like this. Just to give you a complete explanation, the actual correct Vajra, the full Vajra position for it. So the knees should be close together, from the elbow to the tip of the fingers. That should measure knee to knee. Those who do yoga, maybe they can train in this. But we can also recommend this half Vajra, or what we would call half lotus position. You can close it a little bit more. You can keep it a little bit more open. This is the position that for me that works the best, so that I can sit for longer. And then you can do, if this is difficult, then you can do this position, which I don't know the name of it, but it's let's call it the half of the half, and where both legs are underneath. But if that's still difficult, you can sit in a chair. There's no problem. Or you can also sit like they do in Thailand, with a leg behind. There are no counter indications. But what's important is that we don't sit in a posture where we force our body too much. So we then end up with pain or with pain. So one back, 2 legs. Number 3, our shoulders. We can even start with our legs. One legs, 2 back, 3 shoulders. The shoulders shouldn't be tense. Bent forward or arched backwards. Like when we do self-healing, it seems like you're in a correct position when you do like this, but no, because the shoulders are lifted or bent forward. We have this tension in our shoulders, and that will create tension in the back of our neck that then comes to our back, and then that would bring pain throughout the back and the whole body. So our shoulders should be relaxed. You can, it usually helps just to move your shoulders a little bit to settle into that relaxed position. So 1 legs, 2 back, 3 shoulders. Number 4, hands. There are different possibilities here. Within the 7 postures of Vairochana, it's called the mudra of meditative concentration, where the left hand, we set the left hand, and then the right hand is on top, and our thumbs touch. The thumbs are at the height of our navel, and the right hand is resting on top of the left hand. This height works very well when we're seated in at least the half lotus, the half vajra position, or when our cushion isn't too high. So if your cushion is too high, and if you're not seated with your legs in the half or the full lotus position, then there's this tendency to raise one's shoulders and keep one's hands up. So the advice given is to put a kind of pashmina, a scarf, in your lap to give height. So or t-shirt or whatever it is, one sets it on one's lap, and then by resting one's hands on the fabric, then the hands are in the right position, with our thumbs are at the height of our navel without pointing them up, and the hands are about 2 or 3 centimeters under the navel, because the center of energy of our body, one of the most important energy centers of our body, is found there about 2 or 3 centimeters under our navel. So without getting into many details now, but here we're activating this energy, and keeping the thumbs there is to help to create heat. And in the Tibetan tradition, in Tibet, the thumbs are touching, and it creates heat. And in Thailand, the thumbs are not touching, maybe because it's hot in Thailand and cold in Tibet, I don't know. But if at the beginning it's difficult for someone at the beginning, one can also put one's hands on top of one's thighs. But generally speaking, working on the correct posture, remember, we shouldn't be doing this with our thumbs. If you do that, that means that we're putting force. No, they should touch very subtly, without any kind of pressure. There shouldn't be tension anywhere. So, with one leg, we have our back, our shoulders, and our hands in the meditative concentration mudra. 5 is our head. Our head shouldn't be too low or too high. Our head is slightly forward. So if I'm here, I'm completely straight. I set my head slightly forward. Here we have 7 for our mouth. Our mouth is naturally closed. So our teeth shouldn't touch. Our lips are closed, and our tongue ideally touches the palate, not back in the palate, but so here we have our teeth, and if I follow my teeth, and then just a little bit behind the teeth, on the palate there, that has a double function of resting the tongue there. First of all, the touch of the tongue on the palate relaxes our body, and that diminishes tension. This one of my master's Geshe Yeshe Wanchuk said that it's similar to a child who sucks his thumb, and that with the contact with the thumb and the palate creates relaxation. Another very important aspect is when one meditates for 15 minutes or more, if at a certain point, if one is able to keep one's body completely still, even just swallowing one's saliva becomes a great, like a big movement. So if you don't keep your tongue to the resting in that position, then saliva can form in the mouth, and one could really one can start the saliva can come out of the mouth. And if my concentration was so good that I don't even notice that the saliva is coming out of my mouth, then that's fine for me. But it's not great. So if you have even if you have if you have a lot of phlegm in your body, then it may not be enough just to keep the tongue on the palate. It'll help, but it may not resolve it completely. This position of the mouth is a relaxed mouth with the tongue that touches the palate. That should resolve this problem of having to swallow one's saliva. And the seventh posture was the eyes. If the eyes are very closed, it's easier at the beginning. At the beginning, meditating with one's eyes very closed, it helps to not have many thoughts. It helps with having. And then the visualizations are less stable than when one's eyes are slightly open. So the eyes should look downwards, and there are certain meditation techniques where one looks up or actually behind. In our tradition, the normal posture for meditation is with the eyes looking downwards, and it's like when we say downwards, we can imagine if we extend completely like the length of our body, and that point there in front where our body would like the length of our body, that would be the point where that we would concentrate on, not concentrate on, but our eyes, the regard, the view of our eyes, our focus is in that direction. Our eyes are relaxed and rested, and they're slightly closed. So 1 legs, 2 back, 3 shoulders, 4 hands, 5 head, 6 mouth, 7 eyes. Okay, you're following? This is the posture that has been used for centuries by great meditators and the whole history of Tibet. So it's important when one sits, even to, once you're seated, allow yourself to feel your body, see where there are tensions. Maybe one thinks they're in the right position, but there's a little bit of tension in the shoulders or the hands, or maybe there's tension in the hands. It's important to allow the entire body to relax. Even in facial expressions, we relax. Every part of our body is relaxed but composed. To be able to meditate well, there are 2 states that we need to reach: Lugi Xinjiang and Semgi Xinjiang. So the flexibility of the body and the flexibility of the mind. Flexibility means we tell the body to do something, and the body is able to do it without any trouble. And the same thing for the mind. So if I need to walk for 10 kilometers, as long as that is difficult, then I haven't reached the flexibility of the body. If I can walk for 10 kilometers without feeling any kind of strain, in fact, it's actually pleasurable, I can say I've reached the flexibility of the body. And the flexibility of the mind is not feeling at all tired by the flexibility of our body means staying still without any trouble. We don't have to scratch or it's not difficult to stay still. There's no pain. We don't feel like we need to scratch or get up. One, it's actually pleasurable. We can say that one has reached the flexibility of body. And there's an exercise that I invite you to try, even before the exercise of focusing on one's breath. It's quite simple. We sit in the correct posture. This is not meditation. We're simply there and we say to ourselves, I shouldn't move. And we see how much time we can stay still. And try. We're there for 2 minutes, maybe 5, maybe 20, maybe an hour. At the beginning, it's difficult. And when we see that it starts to become too difficult, then we can let go. And then little by little, we can do more. And we'll see that at a certain point, we get out of our comfort zone. We feel pain here. We have an itch there. And then we remind ourselves that that is going to pass, and we just stay still. When we feel that we've gone too far out of our comfort zone, then we can let go. Never force too much, because when we force too much, then we lose any kind of desire to repeat what we've done. Ideally, we get out of our comfort zone a little bit. I'm able to regenerate a state of wellness, and I wait. And then little by little, I increase the time that I stay still. When I'm able to stay in this exercise, the mind can go anywhere. But if you're just able to stay still, you'll see that this also helps keep the mind still. And you can do this anywhere. You're in the car. Hopefully someone else is driving. There, and I sit in the car, and I'm not gonna move. Or in the morning I wake up, or in the evening between one thing and the other. Even 5 minutes, 10 minutes. This exercise helps us really to little by little feel that we can stay still, even though we're not used to it. We're not used to keeping our bodies still. We're used to be constantly doing something. And here we are doing something, but we're doing it by staying still. So here we want to stay still physically. The second level of preparation of the body has to do with our breath. Our breath, once we're seated there, we start observing our breathing and the movement in our body. We observe our abdomen, our chest, our thorax. Is our breathing high? Is it low? Is it regular or irregular? We try simply to observe and allow ourselves to have the awareness of our breath. We observe the feeling at our nostrils, the air that comes in and goes out, where we can even observe the temperature of the air. As we inhale, the temperature is cooler, and when we exhale, it's warmer. To perceive these subtleties of our breathing. After a while of having observed our breathing, little by little, we bring our breathing to an abdominal breathing. So we inflate our little by little our belly, and then our chest, and then I exhale deeply. After a while of breathing like this, that it becomes quite comfortable and natural. When we inhale, we, instead of just inhaling and inflating our belly, then we as we inhale, we put effort in inhaling and inflating also the upper part of our body, of our chest. And then you feel actually your chest lifts up slightly. And then when we exhale, we do the opposite, where we exhale the air first from the upper part of our chest and then to our body. And we actually, with the last exhale, we can put tension a little bit in our diaphragm. So we inhale, and then we can also, we're not in a hurry to exhale, but we allow ourselves to stay in this state and give space between the inhale and the exhale. And I put my energy into this point under my navel, and then I exhale deeply all of the air. Then I inhale another time. I inflate my belly and my chest, and then I bring my attention onto my navel, and I hold as long as it's comfortable, and then we exhale. And you do this. We do this, maybe not just in one session, but in many days. And then little by little, we're able to hold the double the amount of time than our inhale. So ideally, just to give us a reference, if I inhale in a count of 4, then we hold for 8. And then we exhale in 8. So I inhale 4. I hold for 8. And I exhale in a count of 8. Let's remember that when we do this exercise, we shouldn't put too much emphasis or energy into our nostrils, but in our muscles, to be able to hold and exhale slowly. We need to have some muscular control. So little by little, we release the air or inhale. It's a question of familiarization and training. Very, very important to not force. Even if at the beginning it's hard to hold the air for 8, hold it for 1. And then little by little you get to 2, and then little by little get to 3, and then you'll get to 8. Don't be in a hurry to do it, to do too much. So you know it's too much. If you inhale, you hold, and then when you exhale, you no, you can there. That's just too much. The feeling should be of control, and that you're breathing well, and then should be each cycle should be constant. I've tried, for example, I'm able to hold to 60 and even more, but then after when you breathe back, you breathe in again, it's not a regular breath. It's so we should inhale in a stable way and hold comfortably, and then exhale. Then little by little, we increase the time. So I inhale 4, and then I hold for 8. And when we hold, we slightly contract our lower muscles, and we bring the energy in. We concentrate. We put our energy and our concentration to under our navel where our hand is, and then we inhale, and we do what is called the vase breathing. It's just like we're doing this movement with. So on one hand, it's like you also kind of there's this energy that goes up. And then you also pushed down, so you have this energy of wanting to get up, kind of also it's called kumbhak. This helps us hold this air and this energy, so you have this feeling of going up and then also coming down. Even if this is part of the preliminaries, this is an exercise that's fundamental for more advanced meditations. So we inhale, we hold for 8, and then we exhale. So at the beginning, we're able to inhale for 4, we hold for 8, and we exhale for 8. And let's try to bring our awareness little by little also in that space that's created after the exhale and before the inhale. Once it's become quite stable to inhale for 4, holding for 8, and exhaling for 8, we go to the next step, which is I inhale 4, I hold for 8, I exhale 8, and then I hold again for 4. So the complete cycle is inhale 4, hold for 8, exhale for 8, and then I hold again for 4. When this becomes stable and it flows quite easily, naturally, the body wants more. And at that point, you can step up 1 and 1 or 2 and 2. So going up 1 means inhale 5 and hold for 10, exhale for 10, and hold for 5. If we do 2 and 2, then it means I inhale for 6, I hold for 12, I exhale for 12, and I hold for 6. How do I know if I should go up 1 or 2? If after having done 4 and then I go to 6, if it feels natural and I feel fine, then 6 is fine. If I see that 6 and 6, 12, 12, 6, then I go back to 5, 10, 10, 5, because these steps should be quite gradual. So in this process, it's interesting that when we're aware of our breath, breathing like this naturally brings our mind into a calmer state, to a state of more balance, and this inner dialogue diminishes, that inner agitation diminishes. I think this is quite clear, isn't it? Obviously, this is something that doesn't have to do only with the body, but also with our body. We're training also our muscles to be able to breathe like this. And one needs to do it constantly. Otherwise, it's just not possible. The good thing about this exercise is that one can train even outside of the meditative context. in this moment where you're seated and listening, so your back straight, and inhale for 4, and then you hold for 8, you exhale for 8, and then hold for 4. If you're in the car, you can do the same thing and create this kind of awareness. Okay?
Si può aggiungere un passaggio qua, specialmente se noi ci sentiamo
We can
e ci rendiamo conto che abbiamo
we can add something. If we see that we have agitation or anxiety, jealousy, anger, resentment, or any negative attitude or mind, our mind is not able to go from a negative mind to a positive mind. It can't make that jump. It has to go from a negative mind to a neutral mind, and then from a neutral mind to a positive mind. So if I'm feeling hatred towards you, first I need to feel indifference to then develop love towards you. We're not able to go from one extreme to the other.
in questo caso uno dei punti fondamentali per la meditazione è generare una mente
And so it's fundamental to generate a neutral mind before we generate a positive mind. How do we generate a neutral mind? Pabonka Rinpoche gives this example. He says, imagine that we get somewhere and we need to sit down on our cushion. Let's say you get up from your cushion, you go to the restroom, you come back, and someone is sitting in your cushion. What do? And then you start fighting, arguing. Oh, this is my place, and you took my place. And if you find someone who is stubborn and doesn't want to get up, what happens? What happens if you start arguing with someone like that? You're going to spend your time arguing. And if we try to move that person with force, we wouldn't be able to. If we were able to, I mean, the mind just stays stuck there. So Pabonka Rinpoche explains this. So you get there and you see that someone has taken your place. Go outside a bit. And then come back and say, oh, you don't know what beautiful things are happening outside. Look, there's a rainbow. And that person will get up to see that, and then you can go and sit down. What does this mean? When we have an obsessive thought and we're there seated to meditate and our mind is just going round and round, oh, because the other day this person did that, and we're just going round and round, an object of attraction or an object of aversion, we need to distract our mind. Because first of all, we need to make sure first that mind goes away, so that we can then apply, we can generate another mental state, and a mind of neutrality, a mind of presence. So we can use our breath. We use our breath to distract our mind, because we're not able to have two thoughts at the same time. There can be one right after the other, but if the mind goes to an object of attraction, of aversion, to the past, to the future, but if then I set something else to focus on, when the mind is focused on that thing, then it lets go of the other thoughts. Like a child, for example, who goes to the mom and maybe at a store and says, oh, I want that, I want that, I want that. What's a way to change that child's mind? Is to show him something else. Oh no, at home you have this. I mean, you try to change the focus of the child, and for us, our breath has that function. So if we see that we have an emotional state where there's a very, very strong feeling, anger, fear, anxiety, something that's very intense, and we feel it physically, in that case, we inhale from our nostrils and we exhale from our mouth. When we inhale, we imagine that we receive all the blessings and light that comes in, and as we exhale, we take that tension that we feel in our body, and we get rid of it as we exhale from our mouth. This, when we see when we're in a state where the level of tension, inner tension, is very strong. If we're in a state where we're not that taken, then we inhale and we exhale from our nostrils. We inhale deeply. We imagine that the light that comes in and brings a state of calm, and then I exhale deeply, concentrating on the melting and the letting go of all the tensions in the body, and then after, the tensions in our mind. The tensions in our mind would be fear and the projections of our future and the past. And without justifying or judging, we just take that tension and we exhale. We imagine that it's a dark smoke that just disappears into space. If instead we see that we're not able to stay, that we're not able to let go of these negative minds, then we count, a little bit like counting sheep. So we inhale, we hold, we exhale, 1. We inhale, we hold, exhale, 2. And we count up until 7. If halfway through we forget where we are, and that can happen, we go back to 1. It's actually very probable we get to 3, and between 3 and 4, and maybe we've breathed 5 times and thinking about many different things, and then we go back to 1. When we see that we get to 7 and our mind is still not calm, then we can go to 14. Up to 3 cycles, so it's 21. So 7, 7, 7. If we with the hope that after 3, after 7, the mind is calm and present. That's our objective. There's an important aspect here, some important advice. This process of concentration and meditation is really not a state of tension, not at all. Very often in this process of trying to meditate, one tries to make the mind stay still somehow. You need to stay you need to stay here, and you're really constraining and you're forcing the mind. That's not going to work. We need to allow our mind to rest on our breath and to relax on the breath. So what we do is, when we follow the steps well, then naturally we will look for a mind, look for a place for our mind to rest. If we do that process correctly of putting ourselves in the correct physical process and breathing in 4 phases, then little by little, our mind will look for a place to rest. it'll look for another place to rest, but we allow it to come back and rest on our breath. Panchen Chökyi Gyatsen describes this like, imagine the mind, imagine we're on a ship, and at a certain point, this ship is in the middle of the sea, or far out in the sea, and there's a bird like an eagle on the ship, and the eagle wants to fly. Well, let it fly, because sooner or later it will get tired and it'll come back to the ship because there's nowhere else to go. If we're sitting there to meditate and our objective is to be present, but our mind goes into all 10 directions, and the past and then the present and the future, after a while it gets tired and it needs to come back to the present. When we're able to keep our body in the correct posture and to breathe correctly without without forcing the mind to be still, little by little, naturally, the mind will look for a place to rest. And at that point, we offer this present moment, the breath, and we let the mind just simply to stay there. It's very different if trying to force myself to sit, and I'm forcing my mind to focus on the breath. It's very different than sitting and little by little allowing my mind to rest on my breath. This state of concentration is a state of relaxation and not of tension. If you have intense pain, it's not the time to meditate. Either you make peace with your pain, or find a way to not have your pain. So you need to find something to help you not have that pain. If you have chronic pain, it's difficult. You need to really make peace with your pain. Otherwise, if it's something passing, then you should have that pain pass. Something we haven't talked about, but something we haven't talked about was important when we talked about our place. We should try to get rid of or lessen our objects of distraction, things around us that take away our attention. And something that's very important to meditate well is before we meditate well. Before we meditate, even before we sit to meditate, we should try to diminish our sensory distractions. Because if I'm constantly looking, this, that, and the other, and okay, now I'm going to go sit down and meditate, it's going to be very difficult. That's why we clean the room, we prepare offerings, and then we sit correctly. We create that space to get there. That helps. But in the case of loud noise, the problem is not noise. The problem is that we grasp at this noise, that the mind follows this noise. If we're in a context if we're somewhere where there is noise, there is always noise, even our own body, we need to little by little allow ourselves to not enter into a state of judgment. And the problem is that we attribute a name to the noise, and our mind follows the noise. So if you hear noise, if we hear noise and our mind goes towards the noise, then we just let it go, and then little by little it becomes far away and disappears. If you're able to be somewhere at the beginning that has less noise, that would help. And with this, we have the posture of how to sit, our legs, our back, our shoulders, our hands, our head, and our mouth, and our eyes, and our breath. Our breath is part of our meditative posture, and it's also a bridge to our mind. In the preparation of the mind, we have 2 steps: bringing, using the breath to bring our mind to a state of more balance, to calm the mind that is constantly remunerating the past and looking towards the future, bringing to the present, and then being able to do that. This is an enormous gift that one is giving to oneself. But someone might say, well, this isn't meditation. Actually, today, what is taught as meditation is actually, you might think that this is actually meditation, but this that's being taught is actually kind of preliminary. When we meditate is when we actually choose a state that we want to familiarize ourselves with, and I stay single-pointedly on that object. For example, gratitude. So we choose gratitude, and we generate love, for example. Love and faith towards my spiritual guide. I generate those feelings, and I stay on that feeling. Then I am meditating on this love and faith and trust in my spiritual guide, or maybe the awareness of my own mortality, and I stay in that state. I'm meditating on the impermanence of impermanence and on death. So we induce a state, and we stay single-pointedly meditating on that. So to understand a little bit better what we mean by meditating, of course, if I try to meditate on love, but I'm not able to keep my mind still, it's just not going to work. So in the preparation, we prepare the place, we prepare our body, and we prepare our mind. In the preparation of the mind, what makes a bridge between our body and mind is our breath. And little by little, we try not to give importance to the various thoughts that appear. So we bring our attention to our breath, and we release and we let go of these tensions, the various thoughts they come, and we don't grasp at them, and we let them come and go. A thought comes, regardless of how crazy it is, we just let it go. Je Tsong Rinpoche is said that he used to tell his attendant, if you're not able to sleep, try to meditate, because you'll get sleepy. And when you can't remember something, try to meditate, and you're sure to remember. He was joking a little bit with him. But when we try to meditate well, something that can happen is that we feel sleepy. And why does this happen? We're in a state of great tension normally, and when finally we're able to relax, then our body wants to sleep. And sometimes it's okay to relax and to sleep if your body needs that. So the reality is, our body, to meditate well, our body needs to already be in a balanced state. If I'm not able to sleep well, if I have a state of tension or stress, it's very difficult to meditate well. Okay, that's why this process of relaxing is one of the best moments to meditate well is the morning. If to be very precise, it's said that the best moment to meditate where the energy, the natural energy of the day helps us generate a positive meditative state, are those 2 hours before dawn. More or less between 4 and 6 or 3 and 5, so depend on what time dawn is. But those 2 hours before dawn is said is the best time to meditate. Of course, if I go to sleep at midnight, 1, and I'm absolutely exhausted, and I need to set the alarm. I mean, and I'm exhausted, just it's better to sleep at that point. If I turn I turn down the day little by little, and at 9 o'clock I'm in bed and I have a deep sleep, and I can wake up at 3, and from 3 to 5 I meditate, and I begin my day at 5:30. That's wonderful. This requires a daily constancy. My master, one of my teachers, again, Lapala, he would go to sleep he'd go to sleep at 9, he'd get up at 4, meditate, we'd have breakfast at 6, he'd go to work. So, and he would spend his day, teaching and helping in the monastery, come back and do his evening prayers. Again, at 9 o'clock, be in bed. So, meditating well is connected to our daily life. And it's important to remember that it's not because I'm not able to get up at 3 o'clock and meditate that I can't meditate. Because of our lifestyle, because of our lifestyle, our habits, our commitments, that would impede us from doing that. But we can take 15 minutes every day. We can take 15 minutes a day, and that would be life-changing. As we said yesterday or the other day, I mean, it's not going to take you to enlightenment, but it really helps. If to go towards enlightenment, you need to dedicate a little bit more than 15 minutes, but it does make an enormous difference. And I invite you to start with 10-15 minutes, or choose a moment during the day, ideally at the beginning of the day, before you begin your day, before you pick up your cell phone. Because once you take your cell phone and you start looking at messages and news, the mind has already gone. Before that, you sit down and you allow yourself to be present, to breathe deeply, to relax, to generate that second part of the preparation of the mind, which is motivation. Let's imagine a bow and arrow. If I have the bow and I pulling the arrow, no matter how well I'm able to pull the arrow, what changes the result completely is the direction that I give it. If it, whether it's down or up, the direction of our action is our motivation. The same exact action done with a different motivation, intention, changes the nature of the action and the karmic force, and then as a consequence, it changes the type of result that action is going to have. So everything that we do, our motivation is one of the most important things. Motivation is not here, it's here. It's not in your head. It comes from the deeper part of you. It comes from your heart, from your gut, and nobody can trick themselves. The motivation is something that we can generate. Motivation, in other words, is the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's the reason? What's the intention behind it. So before meditating, we ask ourselves, why do I want to meditate? And here we come to the part of generating motivation, which is divided into two parts. And we're not going to look at both of them because I want to look at them well. And there's so much to do that. Often it's explained it very quickly. It's repeated often, and one takes it for granted that you know it. But it's something that we need to give space and time to. And now I'm just going to touch on it, but we're not going to get into details. Motivation is based on a feeling that can go in two directions: love towards oneself and love towards others. We can't love others without first loving ourselves. So we sit down when we've brought our breath to a balanced 4 cycle breathing, and our mind is calm at that point. We should do a brief analytical meditation, and we follow the process of the Four Noble Truths, which are 4 questions. And next time we'll see it more with giving more time to it. The first one is, what is suffering? What do I want? What is my suffering? And then we get to the point where we see, no, I don't want to just not suffer physically, but I want to get out of... And when I realize that as long as I have these dirty filters, I'm going to keep suffering. So as long as there's something that stinks, it doesn't matter how much I can cover it up. It's still going to stink. I want to get rid of what really stinks. In other words, I try to create perfect conditions to be well, but as long as I don't change those causes that bring suffering, I will always suffer. But why do I suffer? I suffer because I don't live reality in a coherent way, because I live myself as if I lived detached from everything, generating an obsession with self-gratification where I'm not able to see anything or anyone independently from the I and the my, generating this strong feeling of selfishness and self-centeredness, where I interact with the world through envy and arrogance and competition and wanting to take from others to be well myself, without getting into the details. That selfishness is the primary cause of my suffering that comes from ignorance. All these mental defilements make me suffer. So I generate a strong desire to be well. The third question, am I able to do it really, sincerely? Is it possible to reach a state of calm and balance and peace that is long-lasting or not? Can I gradually change my mind? Can I generate a little bit of love and stability, gratitude, satisfaction? Is it possible or not? Yes. What's the maximum level? The maximum threshold? Unconditional love. Not to feel anger anymore, to be fully satisfied. So it is possible to reach that state of pace and stability. The fourth question, how do we do it? How can I do it? To do it gradually, I need to eliminate my negativities that are harmful and cultivate the ones that are beneficial to me. And for that reason, now I want to meditate. For this reason, I want now to meditate on the preciousness of the spiritual guide and relying correctly on the spiritual guide. In relying correctly on a spiritual guide, it's not just, oh, there's my guide, you're marvelous. It's concentrating on developing that reciprocal faith and love, that we have faith in ourselves and faith in him. The whole path is there. So that's important to me. That's why I want to meditate. The second part of the motivation is where we start to observe others around us, and we realize that we're not the only ones to suffer. There are many, many others suffering. And I see that just as I want to be happy and not suffer, everyone around me has the same desire. I come back to me and I observe that enormous strength of attraction to my happiness and my aversion to suffering that I have within, and I allow that force to expand like a little rock that lands in the middle of the lake, and the rings creates the little rings of waves that go out and out. This attraction to happiness and aversion to suffering, this expands to all beings, and we generate a feeling that your happiness is important to me as my own, and your suffering as important to me as my own. I want you to be happy. I don't want you to suffer. But we ask ourselves, what can we do to help others be well and not suffer? If I want to help you to not feel anger, then I myself need to have reached that state. So we reach the conclusion, I want to reach this state of wisdom and balance. I want to become a Buddha. I want to reach that state of inner peace, to be able to to be able to help others get out of their suffering. And when we reach that objective, we have completed the preparation of our mind for the meditation. I mean, it's not from one day to the next, but we need a whole lifetime to actually get there. But in this preliminaries, when we have the clear, when we have this clear intention to strongly develop our own qualities and overcome our mental defilements, to be able to help others, and to be able to do that, first of all, I need to have a solid relationship with my spiritual guide. So I need to familiarize myself with that. So that's why I am going to meditate on relying correctly on a spiritual guide, or on this love and trust with my spiritual guide. Is that clear, this process? So here's some homework. Pabonka Rinpoche, who was the master of Albagnano, who wrote this book, the Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. He was meditating in a small hut in the mountains, and he would walk to his master, and his master would give him one thing to meditate on, and then he would meditate, and he'd go to him and say, "I understood this," or "This is my experience." And sometimes his master would say, "Okay, here's the next step," or he would tell him to go back. He'd give him some feedback. I mean, we're not in this context of living in mountain huts and spending our lifetimes meditating, but we do have the but here we're not following a LamRim course where we're interested in having a kind of certificate, but instead we're very lucky because as we meet the subjects that we treat, you need to go home and meditate on them and elaborate them, because this experience of LamRim together is not just about the weekends of LamRim, but it's made up of all the time in between. Because from here to there, even taking the book, I invite you to read the parts that we've seen together. Don't read the whole book, just what we've seen together. Allow yourself to sit down and feel the posture, reflect on the importance of your spiritual guide, bring your mind to the correct calm your mind, following the correct posture. If the next time you have some real experience on the breathing and calming the mind and staying still, you'll have all of the tools to generate the correct motivation. If instead you haven't had any experience on it, you'll get more information, and then little by little it'll seem more and more impossible to realize this. Instead, if we go little by little, step after step, to put it all into practice and do it well, then it's absolutely, totally possible. I think this is quite clear. And someone says, "Yes, Lama, but it's tiresome to sit to do it every day." So I think we're all big enough, we're all old enough to understand that life is tiresome. But when something is important, we do it, or we do it without making excuses. "Oh, but I have pain," or "I'm just tired, I went to sleep late." I remember Gen Lakpala, he had the commitment of reciting certain prayers every day, and he was such a hard worker. Even if he had a commitment, he was one of the best students of the Dharma in all the monastery, and he was asked to be a teacher, and he said, "I can't explain what I haven't understood." So he started taking care of the administrative parts of the monastery, or of the construction of the monastery, or even teaching to small children. I mean, he worked so hard, morning to night. And there were some days that he would come back late, and you could see that he was tired. And sometimes I would see, I could see in his room, there was just there was not a door, but only the curtain. And sometimes I could see that he was falling asleep over his texts. And if that would happen, when he would wake up, he'd go back to the beginning, and he wouldn't begin the next day. He wouldn't go to the next day without having honored his commitments. He had great. He was really able to fulfill his commitments. I mean, even when walking from Tibet to India, he always fulfilled his commitments, and this makes all the difference. So I invite you to not take too many commitments, and what we've seen, just take a minimum amount and think, okay, every day I can do if you say I can do 15 minutes, take the commitment to do 5. But the commitment you take, you need to fulfill. For here to the next month, a short amount of time. But what's important to understand is that what we're doing together here is we're looking at the map, we're interpreting the map. And actually walking is up to each one of us. And now walking means staying still, allowing yourself to be there, and the distractions. Focus on what we've gone through, the importance of a spiritual master, what we're doing together here. Together has two functions. There's a function of transmission and explanation, and transmitting also knowledge, but there's also the function, this process of familiarization. What we do when we're together, there's a kind of a common and analytical meditation that we're doing, and that's why I have this tendency of repeating things more than once, or coming back to ideas. I mean, the actual information that we've seen doesn't take this much time, but staying together, this should move something within us. We should have this feeling that we need a spiritual guide to feel this faith in ourselves and faith in a spiritual guide, knowing also reaching the idea that we really want to meditate. And that's why our teachings are recorded, and you can go back and listen to them again and again. So now we do the final dedications of the LamRim. Since the time of Je Tsong Khapa, these prayers have been recited. Just one thing, just a little bit out of this context, is important for us to understand. These days, these particular days, I've seen in many, many people, and even in myself, some tension. What's important is that very often there are tensions and difficult situations, and when there's a moment of tension, and the weakest points are the ones that show up. So our strongest wounds come up, or this is the weakest link is the one that breaks. And so when we feel this tension, don't react. Let's remember that it's going to pass. Breathe, and that wave is going to pass. This is something, just being in contact with many people, it's interesting. There are periods where people in totally different contexts live similar experiences. That means that we're connected. There are many types of conditions and contexts that touch all of us. And when that's present, let's try not to, to stay underwater. Remember that wave is going to pass. I'd like to ask one thing. I'm going to ask something practical. We're going to do our dedications now. These days, I don't know why, but there's an enormous amount of things that needs to be done. But today, I can't stay long. The things that I at 1 o'clock actually I have an appointment. So let's do our dedications together. And by tradition, if someone wants to quickly say hello, but today it's not the time to ask any questions or any sharing. Really, just the kata quickly. Thank you for now. We will quickly do our dedications. We dedicate for peace, peace within ourselves, peace in our society and on our world. We dedicate, may these teachings that have been handed down from generation to generation and they've arrived to us, may they not stay only on a conceptual plane, but may they arrive from our head to our heart and from our heart to our entire body. May they be part of our being, and may we really be able to walk on this path, to be able to uphold everyone, all the others. Okay. And we'll do a mandala offering to thank.
Ni de gen pa di sange shin tu mikte ulwar ki drokun nam da shin par shoya Je Tsong Lame kutse rapten chin nam karatin le chokchu lo san tempe drume sasumgi drove munsel takto negyo ye dam guru ratna mindral tayami Terne rinto bele tsonye ni katara yangpa kanshe sakpa te lomi mare dongdra na namdren gyawe wangbro dhagyur che terma songwe tsera kundu yang jambe yange tsewe je songne tempe rimpa kunsa lamge cho Nyene drube gyana nyeche shu rangi chishin tokpe lamge ne shukdra tsewe drambe tapke gi drove yigi mumba selche ne gyawe tempa yurin zingyuru chi tempa rinchen chogi makya pam kyabkya nyambra gyurwe chokterani Ninje chembe yirava kyöp Pende derde selwara chebra sho Seche gyawe mechon chinlele Lektro chancho lamge rimpe kyang Tarde namge yila peltere shin Gyalwe tsepa rinto kyongyuru chi Lamsan drube tungen drupche chin Galken seche mida mimin kun Tsera kunto gyawe ngakpa yi Namda lamdan dralwar magyuru chi Kanse tekpa chola che che chu Tsushin drubla tsumba teye tse Tuden namge takto trokche chi Trashi gyatso chukun Kyab kyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lama Drame cheki pela longche ching Sadan lamge yente rabzo ne Dorje change kopa nyurtop Sho gewa di nyurto da lama Sange drup gyur ne Drowa chikyang malupa Te sala kupara sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shin Nintzen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chingi lop kuncho sumki ngodrugut sol kuncho sumki trashisho.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
Dusk, at night, or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Mi me tserwe ter chen chen resi ji me kempe wang po jampe liang du pong ma lu Jom tse sang we da kan chen kepe tso gen tsong khapa lo san trak pe shabla asolwa. Grazie a tutti. Quindi adesso chi vuole venire brevemente per
Thank you. And those who'd like to come briefly for a kata offering, you're welcome.